Hello there, fellow humans, and welcome to this video. And today I want to talk about a topic that keeps coming up as much as my third leg comes up whenever I see a picture of Pan2, and that is crate tanks, and more importantly, why they suck more than a certain Blitz Super sucks black. Let's not get distracted here, okay? Anyway, let's get into it. And as I said, I want to talk about crate tanks and why they are mostly very, very bad. And obviously, we're going to start off with the newest one, which is the Update 260. It doesn't really bring anything new to the game, which, for example, some other tanks that have been introduced in the tech tree absolutely do. Like, for example, the TPP brings a sort of different adaptation of the playstyle of the Batchat, a substantially different playstyle, mind you. And then also the Kranvang, which is the first auto-reloading heavy tank. It's also the first heavy tank, which basically looks like they copied it from a Jurassic Park. But anyway, they do bring some variety to the game, which, you know, is very, very good. However, most of the premiums that are being sold in crates really don't. While there is stuff like the MXM 454, which, I mean, is just a very, very, very fatty 5, if you break it down. There is not a lot of variety, a lot of new things with these crate tanks. Let's, for example, go down to Tier 8, where most of them are actually, where that we have the STG, which is just basically a squashed Object 140 with I don't know what happened to this tank anyway. Thinking about it, honest question to Wargaming's balancing department there, who would have thought that a tank with no DPM, no gun depression, and no penetration, and basically no armor is gonna be bad? I mean, yeah, anyway, that's not the point of this video still. I want to talk about the lack of variety and why crate tanks are just bad, because obviously crate tanks are supposed to be something great, right? Because if we look here in the store, for example, the Object 260, which cost me about half a house, is being sold for essentially what is 200 euros if you get it with the charms, which is the more likely option than getting it from any other containers, because obviously it is gambling and that's dumb. You should know that by this point. If you don't know, then, well, simply the crates are a very, very greedy tactic by Wargaming just to make more money, and anyone that defends crates just is dumb. Anyway, that's not the point. The crates themselves shouldn't be the main focus of this video, because obviously we have established they are stupid, so let's instead look at why the things that inside of them are stupid as well. Isn't that exciting? Now, one of the few examples that I already said is the STG. Then we also have the Kanonen, which answers the question of what happens if you put a Jagdtiger gun on an E25 and put it a tier higher, which, you know, okay. But how many of these do you see in battle nowadays? Yeah, exactly. And then we also have glorious things like the ML 1951, which is a copy of the ML1, so again, very, very, very nice there. And yeah, anyway, then we go on and on and on and on, and then we eventually end up in the T25 Pilot, which, I mean, it's a Pershing named the Pilot, but it's not gonna fly anyway, except to the bottom of the scoreboard. Let's actually get into some gameplay here, and I want to demonstrate it with you first with the Pilot, because obviously this is one of the longer available crate tanks, so at this point people are more adapted to it. And hey, it's an ML 1951. He probably should have taken an ML1, which is actually just better, but anyway. I don't have that, so, you know, I can't talk about a tank that is literally the same as a tank that already exists, but anyway. I'm gonna go, obviously, to town here, because map control is still everything, and if you don't have control, it's gonna end badly. Just, if you don't have birth control, it is gonna end badly. So, yeah, let's try to take this destroyed village right here, which is exactly what my win rate's gonna be after I play about an hour of NA. So, anyway, let's go for this one. Now, what I'm saying here, with all these crate tanks that are coming into the game, first of all, we already said they're nothing special. They're not interesting. The Pilot is simply a copy of the Pershing. The ML is simply a copy of the ML. And then the STG is just, I don't know what the fuck that thing is, but anyway. And then now we have the Object 260, which is essentially a 113 that turns faster but has less armor, so it is very, very similar to that. And on the contrary, we have, on the tech tree, we have, for example, the M6 Yo, which is gonna bring something kind of new to the game, which is another 210 overloader, which is like the 5th in a row. Yeah, Wargaming's not really giving a shit about variety at the moment, now are they? Anyway, what I'm gonna say is something controversial here. I think they should bring the Borask. Or something like that. You know, tanks that are actually interesting, tanks that make the gameplay different if you own them, and rather than just simply being the same thing all over again, just like how the T-22 and the Object 907, once it eventually comes out in like 3 decades, is gonna be the same thing, and there's no point for that, whereas, I don't know, like the KBZ-50, which is gonna bring, I mean, nothing new anyway, but at least we have the AE Phase M103, which, yeah, interesting, certainly, not. And once we continue that trajectory, we're gonna also end up with, like, the Turtle, which, I mean, the Jagdtiger exists, so what's the point of that? And then we continue onwards with the Sumo SM, which actually has some kind of nuance, new things to it, which is having armor, but then again, it's just the 5120. That's better, so it's a regular premium tank anyway. And obviously I'm top damage, that's not even a question at this point. I don't know how I'm able to suck that bad. Then again, most of the World of Tanks Blitz popularity sucks harder than a black hole, so yeah, I guess. Now let's get back to the main point here, which is why crate tanks suck, and now we're gonna go to straight the last offender of that, which obviously is the 260, which came out recently. This tank, to sum it up, it's okay. However, if, you know, if you watched any guide videos that wasn't mine, and that person was overhyping it and saying it's a great tank, they was just straight up lying to you. Which, I mean, at this point isn't anything new. The thing is, with this tank, if you're a good player, if you know what you're doing, you can do amazing with it. You can do amazing with it, rather. But then again, me, a not-so-amazing player, even though I am, like, 4K WN8 on an A, but that's not impressive, I would say get the Chieftain instead, because that thing's just better. It has more armor, it has roughly the same mobility, it has more gun depression, well, it actually has gun depression, and it also has a better gun as well. So there is really no point in ever attempting getting this tank, because if you spend money, you would want to have the best available, correct? If you buy a new car, why would you spend 20,000 on a 90-year-old Ferrari that is gonna break down every 2 miles? And instead, you can get a new car that is smaller, but is way more reliable. So which one are you gonna choose? Yes, you're gonna get the one that works best, because obviously you don't want to throw away your money for something that you don't need, and that is completely shit. And that's the same thing that should apply to Blitz, because obviously 90% of you are either not ever gonna buy a premium tank or only gonna buy a few to make credits. So that is why these crate tanks are really, really bad, because they're essentially the opposite of what's good. They don't bring any variety, they don't bring any better playstyles or anything like that, and they don't make sense for you as a premium tank buyer, because obviously you want to have the best thing, so why would you buy crates and then spend up 200 euros for something mediocre? Yeah, I'm looking like an idiot now, am I? So yeah, there is no point in these tanks. There is no point. Any of the recent crate tanks that have been released since pretty much the beginning of crate tanks were any good. Well, Smasher would like to have a word with me there, but then again, that's an exception, and that's a tier 7, so tier 7 matchmaking is broken anyway. Let's not care about that. You know, noob tiers. But most of the crate tanks are just pretty much trash. They're not anywhere near the top. They're not worth what you're spending on, and that's kind of what I think Wargaming knows that, but I think they're banking on a lot of people just buying 1 or 2 crates where they like, hey, maybe let's buy 2 crates, maybe I'll get a tank, and then for the next tank, hey, let's buy 2 crates, maybe I'll get a tank, and then they never get a tank because the drop rates are shit. And then once they end up getting a tank, they find out it's, well, fairly mediocre, and they have to go back to buying an actual good tank in the shop. So that is kind of what the strategy here for Wargaming is, to sell as many crates as possible while getting as little tanks on the battlefield as they can. Now, obviously, I'm not advocating any of these crate tanks to be overpowered. That's not what they should be, obviously. But then again, this is Wargaming that we're talking about, so they have no clue about balance. Well, more than World Tanks PC anyway, though. But still, I'm not saying that these tanks should be overpowered, I'm just saying that these tanks should not exist at all. Because, why would you sell something as new when it's simply just rebadged as it was before? Like, this tank is nothing new, it's nothing really interesting, and, I mean, sure, some people are going to enjoy it, a 60%er is going to do well with it, you know, get your 3k and get out. But for the average player, this tank is a horrible choice, and pretty much all the other crate tanks are a horrible choice as well. So, you know, that's pretty much... I don't know if it's intended, it probably is. But you can get away with way better tanks outside of crates, you know, like you can buy the Chimera, you can buy the Centurion, you can actually buy the Centurion Action X and the Progetto 46, well, two of the, I'd say, top 10 best tier 8s in the game. You can buy them in the shop right now. And there is also 260 crates in the shop, so, you know, that should be a very, very easy choice there of which one to go for. But a lot of people are still going to try their luck with the crates because they think, hey, crate tank, it's rare to get, so it must be good. Well, it isn't. It's average at best, this tank. Especially for bad players, they're going to struggle a hell of a lot because it has no armor. It's essentially, I mean, it's more of a medium than a heavy, which, you know, T30 players can kind of understand how that feels. But this is not good, and that's the final point of these crate tanks. None of them are worth it. None of them are really a variety. How the fuck is this an ace, yo? How the fuck? This is an ace. Are other people playing this tank so dumb, or am I that good? Well, I'm not good, so it's not me. Anyway, that's an ace somehow. But yeah, that's just what I'm saying. With these tanks, you're not helping at all by bringing more people closer to bankruptcy because they gamble themselves out of their money by buying tanks which are mostly fairly mediocre, which, you know, for the value that they're sold for, makes them shit. You know, like, for example, the SDG has been sold for, like, what, 12k gold? It's worth, like, 3k at best. And it was in crates before that, so, you know, don't buy that stuff. Stick to the good tanks. Scorpion, T54, even a Löwe, even a T34, stuff like that. You know, you can buy them in the shop right now, rather than gamble on crates. So, yeah. With that horrible disappointment, that crates are, and that most crate tanks are as well, except Smasher. That is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one. Goodbye.